The story begins not in a glittering palace, but in the heart of a dragon, the fiery, rugged mountains of Badakhshan, a land we now call Afghanistan. Here, in the deep dark, a crystal was born. A fierce, crimson giant, forged under immense heat and pressure. It was not a delicate thing. It was a warrior's jewel from its very creation, waiting centuries for a hand worthy enough to carry it. Can you imagine that moment, when a miner's lamp first flickered across its blood-red face deep in the earth? Its first adventures were on the legendary Silk Road. It was a treasure without a master, passed from merchant to bandit, sultan to thief, hidden in sacks of silk and spice. Each hand that held it dreamed of fortune, but the stone seemed to bide its time, traveling ever westward toward a destiny it could sense but not yet see. Its journey finally paused in the sun-baked, war-torn land of Spain. There, it came to rest with Abu Said, the Muslim ruler of Granada. He admired its fire, but he was not its true master. The stone was merely waiting. Then came the viper. In 1366, Abu Said accepted an invitation to meet the Christian King Pedro of Castile in the city of Seville. Pedro was a man with a nickname that told you everything. The meeting was a trap, plain and simple. Words of peace were a lie. Pedro wanted the kingdom's wealth, and he especially wanted that famous fiery red stone. When the talk was done, Pedro's soldiers fell upon Abu Said and murdered him. The king himself is said to have yanked the jewel from the dead prince's clothing. So began the stone's European saga, baptized not in wine, but in betrayal and blood. What kind of power does a stone carry when it is stolen with such treachery? King Pedro did not enjoy his prize for long. The stone's curse, if it had one, worked quickly. His own brother, Henry, raised a rebel army to tear the throne from him. His cry for help sailed across the sea to England, to a man who was less a prince and more a force of nature. Edward of Woodstock, the Black Prince. This was no fancy palace dweller. He was a whirlwind in black armor, a commander who led from the front, his name a curse on the lips of his enemies. Pedro promised him gold, land, and mountains of treasure for his aid. The Black Prince answered the call. He brought his storm of English longbowmen and knights to Spain, and at the Battle of Najera in 1367, they crushed the rebel forces. But when the dust settled, Pedro's had no money to pay the army that saved him. The only thing of true value he possessed was the blood-red stone stolen from Granada. With nothing else to offer, he handed it over. The Black Prince, a man who valued fierce loyalty and courage above a traitor's word, took it. For a time, the stone rested in England, a trophy in a royal treasury. But a jewel born of volcanoes and baptized in betrayal cannot be kept in a quiet, dark box. It thirsted for the roar of battle once more. Its chance came on a cold, muddy October morning in 1415 on a field called Agincourt in France. The new English king, Henry V, was a young lion, outnumbered 5-1 by the flower of French nobility. As he armed for battle, he chose to set the stone directly into his helmet, a bold red beacon for his men, and a target for his foes. The French Duke of Alençon, a giant in shining armor, fought his way through the fray directly toward the English king. With a mighty roar, he lifted his heavy battle-axe and brought it down with all his strength on Henry's head. The sound of the blow rang out a sickening crash of metal on metal. The king stumbled, his helmet terribly dented, but he did not fall. The blow that should have cracked his skull was miraculously turned. And there, in the front of his battered helm, the red stone still blazed, unbroken. It was more than luck. It was legend. After such a feat, the stone's place was eternal. It was set into the very crown of England, a companion to monarchs through the ages. It watched the turbulent reign of Henry VIII and gleamed on the brow of the mighty Elizabeth I. It became the heart of the kingdom itself. But then came the greatest threat, yet not from a foreign army, but from the king's own people. In 1649, after a bitter civil war, the monarchy was overthrown. King Charles I was executed, and England became a republic. The new rulers saw the crown jewels as gaudy symbols of tyranny. They ordered every last crown, scepter, and orb to be torn from the Tower of London and destroyed. This was not a battle the stone could fight with fire. This was a cold, bureaucratic end. The beautiful ancient gold was melted down into boring, plain coins. The gems were pried out and sold off to any merchant with a handful of coins. Centuries of history were dissolved in a crucible or scattered to the winds. The crown that held our ruby was broken up, its gold melted. The stone itself, it seemed, was lost, sold to some anonymous buyer. Had the warrior's jewel finally met its end, not on a glorious battlefield, but in a merchant's dusty shop? The stone had one last brilliant escape. It was saved by its own fame. A savvy jeweler, perhaps hearing whispers of the legendary gem, recognized it amid the scattered treasures. He did not recut it. He did not sell it to a foreign prince. He bought it and kept it safe, gambling that the tides of history would turn once more. And he was right. In 1660, the kings returned. Charles II sailed back to London, and the people, tired of strife, welcomed the monarchy back. The kingdom wanted its glittering history restored. Agents were sent across the land to find the lost treasures of the crown. They tracked the great red stone to the jeweler. He returned it to the crown for the sum of £400, a king's ransom at the time. The survivor had come home, but its old companions, the crowns of Plantagenet and Tudor kings, were gone forever, turned into coins spent on long-forgotten things. The stone needed a new home, a setting worthy of its epic tale of survival. What kind of crown could possibly hope to contain such an untamable spirit? The answer came in 1838. For a young Queen Victoria, ruler of a vast empire, a new crown was forged, the Imperial State Crown. It was a masterpiece of gems and gold, studded with nearly 3,000 jewels meant to showcase the power and reach of Britain. And where did they place the veteran of 100 conflicts? Right at the front. Dead center, beneath the massive cullinan, the second diamond, they set the old warrior. It was not just a placement, it was a promotion. The stone that had been a helmet ornament, a lucky charm, a survivor of the melting pot, was now the defiant, fiery heart of the empire's most important symbol. Every monarch since has worn it, the stone staring out boldly during coronations and the state opening of Parliament, a silent, seasoned captain on the ship of state. Yet through all this glory, a fantastic secret was kept. The whole world called it the Black Prince's ruby. Kings had gone to war over it. Poets had written about it. But for centuries, everyone had been fooled. The great reveal came not from a historian, but from a scientist with a sharp eye and new tools. In the 1700s, gemologists began to learn the true language of stones, their hardness, their crystal shape, their hidden ingredients. They discovered that this ruby was a glorious fake, a magnificent impostor. It was a spinel, a different mineral altogether. A true ruby is one of the hardest stones on earth, a corundum. Our warrior stone, the spinel, is softer, born of different stuff. All those kings who thought they wore a ruby into battle, all those thieves who killed for it, had been tricked by its fiery beauty. It was the greatest con in the history of jewels. And yet, when the truth came out, did they change the name? Of course not. The Black Prince's ruby sounded of legend and battle. So there it sits today, in the Tower of London. It is a pirate's treasure, a knight's lucky piece, a survivor of axes, treachery, and the melting pot.